have in church. For the multitudes of blessings, for the family that we have here, the parents, the children. We thank you for we can pray for each other. We can live this life together in your presence. Please bless us to understand your word, to be able to extend our hearts so that your word will fill us. We rely all our hopes in you, Jesus. Amen. Please take your seats. Please open your Bible in the Gospel of John, chapter 3. Our topic today is Jesus is the joy. We already read this text, but today we will continue. We'll read about John the Baptist, who preaches about Jesus and says that Jesus is the source of life and the source of joy. Jesus is reflected in the actions of John the Baptist. We will not see much Jesus here, but we know that John the Baptist was a mirror that showed Jesus to the world. And we will learn to have the joy like John had. Today we prayed for the children. And one of the goals of bringing up the children is to teach them to rejoice. We know that this world is big and evil, and it's not easy to have joy when you see so much pain and so many troubles around. It's hard for a child to have joy when the child doesn't always get what he or she wants. You can already talk with your children about joy. And I think that this relates to everyone, not only those who have children. I already told you last time that we live in the time of a disaster. On the one hand, a person cannot live without optimism, without joy, without hope. On the other hand, we can see that we're constantly lacking joy, the true joy, the deep joy, the true optimism, this lightness inside, and the real hope that God is the God of love and mercy, and all the good that we do not deserve. But God cares for us like He cares for little children. And oftentimes we do not feel this ease of life. We're oftentimes strangled with our troubles and fears. That's why it's easier for people to find some substitutes for joy than to seek joy in Jesus. And the reason for that is not because we do not want to be joyful, but the reason is that we want to have joy immediately. We need to have it now. But joy in God is something that we have to work for, that we need to have some effort to get it. The true joy, the deep joy, The overwhelming joy from heaven doesn't always come at once when we ask for it. That's why we are tempted to seek for other sources of joy. So instead of drinking from the sources of the eternal life, we turn to the broken wells of worldly joy. This is what happened to the disciples of John the Baptist. They were looking for the joy that was not from Christ, and they lived in tension. They lived in worries. We also spoke about the secret of joy that John the Baptist had. Let's read from chapter 3, verse 22. After these things, Jesus and his disciples came into the land of Judea. Jesus was in Jerusalem, then he leaves Jerusalem. Jerusalem was in the province of Judea, so he leaves the city and goes to a certain place in Judea to baptize. Verse 23. John also was baptizing in near Salim, because there was much water there, and people were coming and were being baptized. Okay, let's read again. After these things, Jesus and his disciples came into the land of Judea, and there he was spending time with them and baptizing. Jesus didn't have his own home, so when he began his public service, he had to spend nights at different places. Sometimes some kind of people accepted him, sometimes he had to sleep in the desert. So, John was also baptizing in Enon and Salim because there was much water there. And people were coming and were being baptized, for John had not yet been thrown into prison. It's obvious from the life of John the Baptist that the path of a person serving God is quite thorny. John the Baptist paid a very high price for this calling, although he was a happy person, but the price was really big. That's why many people reading the Bible refuse to follow this path, because they have to pay much. John received his calling from the heaven, and we see how he continues. He carries on until he is called by God into the heaven. He was faithful in serving the Lord until his God gave him peace in heaven. Although Jesus was more fruitful than John the Baptist, and Jesus came to the front of this ministry, the ministry of Jesus was blooming and growing. It was bursting, in fact. Despite this, John didn't do what many leaders do when they lose their ministry. A lot of people who serve God and have big ministries may be jealous when they lose it, may be angry. But John the Baptist was happy to have Jesus overcome him. The ministry of John the Baptist was still unique, was still very powerful and important. even if he knew that soon he would have to retire and Jesus would continue. And even if there is someone better than you, more successful than you still have to continue and do what is entrusted to you by the Lord, faithfully, with joy, and with hope in Jesus. Let's come back to the scripture, verse 45. Therefore, there arose a discussion on the part of John's disciples with the Jew about purification. You know that Jews were quite godly, they were very religious, and when they were offered, when they were called to repent by John the Baptist, they were offended. We don't know what exactly they were arguing about, but it's obvious that this argument led to a spirit of competition among John's disciples. And they didn't like the fact that Jesus had more disciples than John. This was something that took away joy from their hearts. The influence Jesus had on the masses of people, the success Jesus had, was quite a tribulation for them. And it stole joy from them. They were tested by Jesus' success, and they didn't stand. Remember the parable of Jesus about two houses that were built on rocks and on sand. So the houses looked the same, but the foundation was different. So when the hardships began, when the storms hit these houses, the house on the rock stood, but the house on the sand was destroyed. This is one of the illustrations that shows us that the disciples of John were tested. Their joy, their faith, their optimism was tested by the Lord, and it was ruined. For a long time they looked quite godly, they looked quite spiritual, but when Jesus came, they began to worry. They were frightened. They realized that they were not as influential, as successful as they used to be, and this made them sad. They were not in the center of attention anymore. They were not that special anymore. Their ministry didn't provide them with the respect from people, with this glory that they used to have, and they saw that this was the time of the sunset of their ministry and glory. They saw that their mission was coming to an end. Their mission was almost accomplished, and their success was not that big anymore. It's also obvious that the disciples of John had their own success as a source of joy in their lives. So they lost this joy, they lost this peace. And so they go to John, they want to solve this problem, and they probably believe that something had to be done on the outside. Maybe Dr. Jesus or maybe create some other strategy. So they come to John and they say, Rabbi, he who was with you beyond the Jordan, to whom you have testified, behold, he is baptizing, and all are coming to him. He who was with you beyond the Jordan, to whom you have testified, he is baptizing. Look, there is a problem. Jesus is a problem. It's not good, it's not right, and you have to do something about it. To restore our joy, to restore our optimism, to restore and protect our hope. To protect our success, our plans. Look, Jesus has come with his disciples and we have to do something about it. They were driven by jealousy, by envy, by competition, the struggle for personal success, the supremacy. Maybe they were struggling for their own truth. They believed that they were better. They had a better ministry. They were acknowledged by the Lord. They were struggling for the safety of their tomorrow, and all these things destroyed their joy. They couldn't control it all. They couldn't always be at the front. So they come to John and say, look, the one whom you baptized, he is baptizing. He is attracting more people. Matthew Henry, and his book has written this: the desire to have the monopoly of the ministry, of the respect, has always been a curse of the church in all times, in all centuries. As well as the struggle for the interest and the passion for competition. We are mistaken when we think that the best gifts and merits and the success of the ministry of one diminish the success of the other. We have to love and respect the tools that God is using to save His children in this world. Instead of struggling for being the best, for being the only ones, for being the most successful, we should rather support other tools, other children of God. Because God is the only one who decides who will be successful and who will have the biggest ministry. So every time we try to capture the monopoly of the ministry, it turns into a curse for the church. Unlike his disciples, John the Baptist reacts to the success of Jesus in a different way. Chapter 27. John answered and said, a man can receive nothing unless it has been given him from heaven. This is his reaction. They say, John, this is not right, we have to solve this problem. It shouldn't be like this. And John shows them how he looks at the situation. And we see that he is not looking at it in a horizontal perspective. He's not comparing himself to Jesus. By the way, Jesus was his cousin. He's not competing with Jesus. He's not saying that he is older than Jesus. He began this ministry. He was at the start. And Jesus only came to this ministry thanks to John and through John, because John baptized him. And John sacrificed so much for this ministry. He lived in the wilderness and ate insects. And he dedicated all his life to this ministry. Now he's looking at it vertically, and he looks at the Lord, and he reminds himself that it was the Lord who appointed him to this ministry. He looks at the situation from above, from the perspective of God, and he analyzes the situation in this way. And here we can see the first secret of his joy. We can see why his joy stood in the storm. And the secret of this joy is being sure that God is providing first for it all. In other words, if I look at my ministry, I look at the people who serve in this ministry. If I look at the success of my ministry, I should remember that it is God who is above. It is the Lord who began it, and this is the Lord who will end it. Today we were praying for the children and the babies. We saw how little they are, but in one of the prayers I said, the mission of God is being accomplished right now. The Lord blessed His children to be born, to be conceived, to be born into these families, not other families. He gave them a certain sex, a certain appearance, certain traits, certain abilities, inclinations, a certain amount of health. This is already created by the Lord. This is God's providence, and it is already being accomplished, and it's very important for the parents to, on the one hand, have this desire to pray, for the happiness and the well-being of their children, and there's the other side, which is even more important. And this other task for the parents is to listen carefully to the Lord, to be attentive to what the Lord is doing in the lives of their children. To understand this, that this child was created by the Lord, for the glory of the Lord. The child was not given to me for my happiness, my well-being. And this is my child, and I am his or her parent. But it's very important to realize that this child is God's providence, and the mission is being accomplished. This is how John was looking at the situation. He wasn't questioning why Jesus was so successful, why Jesus was ahead. Instead, he looked at the Lord and rejoiced in God's providence. The supremacy of the other minister didn't depress John. On the contrary, he was rejoicing. Remember Paul in the letter to Corinth was arguing the situation when the people said, I am Paul's, I am Apollos', and I am Jesus's, and Paul was trying to teach them that they all belong to Jesus, and Paul and Apollos are only the servants. And then he says, it's all yours. Paul is yours, Apollos is yours, the church is yours. We are all members of one God's church, one and only church, and we shouldn't compete. We should rejoice in this ministry. We should glorify the Lord. So in this sense, the joy of John the Baptist is true and solid. And instead of worrying for the success of his ministry, John is happy to see that the glory of God is expanding. John didn't lose his joy. On the contrary, his joy was growing because John was sure that it was God's providence, it was God's plan for his life and for the lives of other people. He knew that God was leading him, and all he had done so far, all that was happening around him was because of God. He knew clearly that it was God doing so that the ministry of his cousin was becoming more and more influential and his ministry was decreasing. We can also find an example of such supernatural joy in the Old Testament, where we read about two parents, the mother and the father. The mother who couldn't conceive a child. It was the mother of Prophet Samuel, and she came to a temple and she was praying and she passionately desired a child. In those times, if a woman didn't have a child, it was a shame for her. A child in those times was a very essential blessing, an approval, a sort of approval from the Lord. And so a priest named Ilya saw her and he thought that she was drunk. That's why she was so passionate in her prayer. But she explained to him very humbly that she was unhappy because she couldn't have a child and she wanted one desperately. And he said, go to your home and don't worry, God has heard your prayer. And so she goes home and she conceives a child. You can imagine how much this child meant to her, how much she obtained with this child. First, she was recovered in the society. Her shame was lifted. But when she was still praying there in the temple, she said, if you give me this child, God, I will give it back to you. And so some time passes and then we read in the book of Kings, chapter 21. So the husband of Anna went to Jerusalem to worship the Lord in the temple. And she says, I will not go with you this time, but a time will come and our son will go with you and stay there forever. So now imagine this little baby boy. The child is 3 years old. As soon as it stops to be breastfed, this child has to go there and stay there. So the husband of Anna realized that it was very hard for Anna to let go of her only son. And so he says, may the Lord make your steps firm and make your words unshakable. And so the child stays with Anna and she breastfeeds the child until the child grows. And then she says, and now I give my child to the Lord for all days of his life to serve the Lord. And she bowed down before the Lord. She could do it. And she could do it with joy. Maybe she was crying, but she had joy. She did it with optimism and with hope that the Lord will take care of her when she grows old, not her son, and that the Lord will take care of her son without a mother at his side. She gives her child to the Lord, and she entrusts herself into the hands of the Lord. And her secret was that she was sure in God's providence, and she was sure that God knew what He was doing. And so Anna was praying, and she said, my heart rejoices in the Lord, not in the family happiness, not because my child made my dreams come true. No, she rejoices in the Lord.
Широко разверзлись устами наворованные, то есть она смело говорить, которые были как враги, а вы неплохо говорили, Бог благословил. Ибо я радуюсь о спасении Твоем. Вот мой взгляд, он сфокусирован на Боге. Моя радость в Нем, я радуюсь.
Her joy is in the Lord. She rejoices in the salvation that she has in the Lord. And why is she so happy? She proclaims and says what God is like. She shows her theology and she proclaims there is no one holy as the Lord. In all His qualities, the kindness, His love, He is incredible. There is no one like you. There's no other God like you, and there is no other stronghold like you. You can stand firm on the Lord. It's the best protection. Do not multiply speeches with no sense. The Lord is the God of wisdom. He knows everything. The Lord knows all your thoughts and deeds and words, and He evaluates them.
Они не беспокоятся, они доверяют Богу, и Бог кормит их. Даже бесплодная, говоря о себе, она говорит, рождает 7 раз.
And even a barren woman gives birth 7 times. And a healthy woman drops weary. And so she's saying it doesn't matter if we are weak or strong, if we are rich or poor. The Lord gives life and takes it away. The Lord makes the life long or short. He saves and He damns.
Господь над этим тоже есть. Он же унижает, возвышает. Из праха подъемлет он бедных.
The Lord can raise a poor man from the dust.
Из пыли, из грязи возвышает нищего, посажает с вельможами, с царями, с президентами. И престол славы дает им в наследие, и их дети потом на этом престоле сидят. Ибо у Господа основание земли, все мироздание в его руках.
The foundation of earth is in the hand of the Lord, and He has set the earth firm on His laws and decrees. He keeps safe the feet of His holy ones. And the ungodly die and disappear, for our optimism and our future does not depend on our strength. The Lord will judge all ends of the world and will give strength to His King and will support the ones who rely on Him. This is the prayer of a simple woman, a female theologian. And so she brought her son to the temple, prayed with joy, and went back home. And her son stayed there. So this is this theology of a man relying on God. We should remember and realize that our health, our well-being, the ones we love, our future, everything is in the hand of the Lord. And God's providence, God's paths, God's intentions and plans are good for us in all times. We shouldn't be afraid. We shouldn't be upset. Matthew Henry says here, John agrees with God's providence. Different types of ministry are allocated according to God's will, and different gifts are also given to people according to God's will. Not a single person can receive the true honor and gifts from the Lord unless the Lord gives. That's why we shouldn't envy and we shouldn't be jealous with the ones who do more, who are capable of serving more, and who are more successful. We should remember that our reward will be granted to us by the Lord, not according to how much we have given and how much we have served, but the Lord knows that if He gave us 1 silver coin, we will bring 2, not 1,000. The Lord will expect from us according to the gifts He has given us, according to the strength He has given us. Some people are given more, some people are given less, and the Lord knows how much we are able of, how much we can do, and how sincerely we do it. The Lord gives good health to one people and bad health to others. The Lord created one people smart, more smart than the others, more clever. Some people are able of doing something better than others, and this is God's providence. The Lord will not expect from us the things that He expects from others, and He will not compare us to others. That's why we shouldn't carry these burdens of competition with others. Instead, we should rejoice in the plan that the Lord has for us, for each one of us. John reminds his disciples that Jesus wouldn't overcome him if he weren't appointed by the Lord for this ministry. If the Lord decides to give others more success than us, should we really be jealous? We shouldn't be dissatisfied when we are worse than others. We are not that gifted, not that smart, not that strong as others. And when we are in the shade of the glory of others. John was ready to acknowledge that it was the heavenly gift that made him a prophet. It was God who put in the hearts of people love for John and respect for John. And if now it's fading, let the will of God be. Let the will of God be done. When we are chasing the form, the outward success, we lose our joy. Our joy is tested by somebody else's success and it is destroyed. If somebody has a better family, better relations in family than you, it may make you unhappy. And the feeling that I'm not as good, my life is not as good, I'm not blessed as much as others, and why is it happening? Maybe the Lord wants you to grow in these difficulties and to glorify the Lord in the hardships. Somebody has a family, somebody not. But this is God's providence for us. Whether you have the good health or not, whether you have children or not, we can rejoice in what we have instead of looking at others, peeping over the hedges. You know the saying that the neighbor always has a better house and a bigger lawn. It may be painful for us to hear about the success of others, to hear about others who have what we are dreaming of. Sometimes people just tell us about something that they have been blessed with so joyfully, and it may cause us a great pain, but we should remember that it is not a mistake of the Lord that we don't have what we want. If I see that my life is full of hardships, I should remember that this is the path that God has appointed for me. It may seem to me so wrong, but the Lord wants me to go this way. And I should try to understand what the Lord is doing, how He is planning to use me in this life, to humble myself and accept it as a mission for me, to look for God's face in these circumstances. John says that the one who gives has the right to take away what we have received from the heaven, can be taken away at any time. It was given to us temporarily. Moreover, God has never appointed us to fulfill a never-ending ministry. And John realized that his ministry was limited by the Lord, was limited in the time. And he saw that his ministry was coming to an end. and he was looking at his ministry with content and with joy. He knew that God was over it. God is over everything, even over our mistakes and flaws. And He allows us to make mistakes and to reap bad fruit of our sinfulness. God is always with us, no matter what's going on in our lives. He doesn't only go with us when we are successful and right. He always holds our hands. He never leaves us, even when we fall. Even when we are unfaithful and weak, He's always with us. He's always over us. He's always in us, and it was given to us from heaven. In Romans 8:28, it's written, and we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to His purpose. So this is the first secret of John's joy. He is sure in God's providence. He looks at his life, he looks at Jesus, who is more successful, and he has peace in his heart. It was planned by the Lord. He continues in verse 28.
Иоанн говорит, он выражает здесь два таких важных секрета в этой фразе. Секрет радости номер 2. Ясное понимание того, кто Бог и кто я. Он ясно здесь говорит.
John understands clearly who is God and who is John. And he reminds his disciples,
не может пробудить во мне всякие такие желания быть первым, собственно, но я как раньше стоял на этом воспитании, так сейчас. Я не Мессия.
He says, I'm not the Messiah, I'm a human.
Я перед ним побуду, я скажу в сторону, чтобы он
I was some time before Jesus, but now I have to go away.
я закажу в сторону сам.
I'm not the king.
От меня. Нет, я только открываю дверь.
I'm only the door for Jesus to come in and shine with glory. That's why I was in front of him for some time to only open the door for him and stand at the back. And John says, you know that I have always preached about it and I believe it now. At the beginning, when I was successful in my ministry, was boosting, and now when my ministry is decreasing. So the secret of joy number 2 is the clear understanding who is God and who I am. And it's very important to teach the children this truth so that they may know that God is the creator and they are humans. God is the creator, the Holy One, the immortal one, and I am a mortal being, human being. So I have to eat, I have to sleep, I get tired, I grow weary. I may be disappointed. I may be wrong. I fall because I am a human. He is the perfect one. I am not. I am flawed. I cannot control everything, although I'm trying. I cannot control all cells of my body. I cannot control how blood is running through my veins. I cannot control many things, the policies, the president, the economy of my country. That's why John looks at Jesus and he understands that John is not God, Jesus is God. He knows that God is good and merciful. That's why John was not going to struggle for the success of his ministry. God is the Savior, and I'm still sinful. Martin Luther, right before his death, said, "We are still sinners." God used him so much, and yet, when he was dying, he said, "I'm still a sinner." I look at him and I know who God is and who I am. And this preaches a lot to my heart. God is the source of all goods, and I need the water of life. God is the source of happiness, and I am needy. I'm like the sand that takes in the water and is still dry. He is God, I'm not. He is my Savior, I'm a sinner. That's why John acknowledges his place in this world, and this allows him to have joy.
Я буду свое счастье сам, я достигну всего сам, я сделаю себя сам, я защищу себя сам.
People want to control their lives. They oftentimes want to make Jesus a part of their team. They want to be leaders. And a lot of people, especially men, when they hear that this phrase, "you're not a leader," it just breaks them, it destroys them. But Jesus is the true leader, and our desire to rule, to control, to be successful, to lead, to drive, it sucks out life. It destroys us. God is the source of our safety. That's why I can go to sleep and be calm. That's why I can sleep peacefully without worrying that somebody can get into my house or my child can wake up and go away suddenly, without worrying what will happen tomorrow and how I will settle all my problems. John the Baptist says, "I was sent before Jesus." He was called, and he was given a certain task to fulfill. All Christians have a calling, a general calling, but beside that, every Christian has his personal calling that is defined by how God has shaped this person, has created this person, on the unique traits that God has given him, and the circumstances that the Lord has placed this person in. Depending on the circumstances we are going through, we follow a certain path that God has put us to follow. We are different. We live different lives. We go through different problems and circumstances. This is all God's providence for us because He has prepared a specific instrument for a specific ministry. And He uses us everywhere. In happy moments and in problems. So John understands that his mission is to only open the door and prepare their hearts for the coming of the Messiah. That's why he said that he was only a voice in the wilderness, calling people for repentance. He didn't have any other mission. He was only sent to prepare the path for Jesus. He wasn't a successful businessman. He wasn't a scholar. He didn't receive any good education. He didn't live in comfort. He didn't have a family. According to the world standards, he was a loser, a pathetic loser, a young man who died at the wake of his ministry. But John looks at all his life in a different way. He sees that he has a mission from God, a certain mission, and he fulfills it. When we understand our calling, when we live according to this calling, it gives us deep and stable joy. Otherwise, if we don't understand our calling, or if we do not submit ourselves to this calling, if we are not in the epicenter of God's will for us, we will not be in the epicenter of God's joy. When we don't understand our calling, we don't do what we were created for. We live in doubts. If we do the right things, if we do them right, if we do them well, other people seem to be better, more successful. Maybe I should go somewhere else, maybe I should do something else. Some other people get better education, they use more chances, and it may be painful for us. It may be difficult for us. We want many things, but we don't know what exactly we are called to. As a result, we may live in doubts and be torn apart among many things. We may not see any fruits, good fruits in our lives. Some people we know have better fruits and we don't. What is wrong? We may not see God's glory in our lives. We may be jealous. We may envy others, just because we don't understand the calling that we have from the Lord. John the Baptist says, I have testified earlier and I repeat it, I am not the Messiah. I was sent before him. When I look at some Christians, especially those who are older or the ones I've known for a long time, for more than 10 years, I see that I have some thoughts about myself, about others, and then I look at people and I see what God is doing, how God is shaping a person, what strengths God has given this person, and how great it is when the person can see them and uses them in accordance with God's will. If we don't see it, if we don't understand it, we will be hustling around, worried, and we'll have very little peace in our hearts. Let's imagine that you have a friend who is not yet married, and she has a very good career, she earns a lot of money, and she travels a lot. Her wall in the Facebook is full of nice pictures, and you are the mother of 3 children, and you realize that all your money is spent on the children. You're wearing the same dress for the 5th year already, and you have no prospects for change. But you can look at it from the other side and see that God has entrusted to you 3 little lives, and you have a great influence on these people, on these little people, and you will have this peace and joy if you realize that this is the mission you were born for. When you were conceived in the womb of your mother, God already knew that at this age you would get married, and at that age you would have children, and at that age you would do this and that. God was blessing you and leading you to this moment, and now you have it. But you may feel broke. You may feel that you're missing something, especially if you follow some successful friends on Instagram or on Facebook. There are some successful people you may follow on Instagram and believe that they are so happy, they are so great, they are so successful, but guys, you don't really know what is happening in other people's lives. And these beautiful pictures are just a facade. I remember one successful woman wrote about her divorce, how she was led to it, how many psychologists she consulted, what wonderful deep truth she realized, and how she grew through this process, and then she marries again, and the number of her followers grows. And you sit in the kitchen, you cook breakfast for your 3 children, and you're just dreaming of going somewhere for 2 weeks and sleeping, and her life is so great. This successful woman never takes picture of herself when she is tired, when she's sleepy. You know, dear sisters, brothers, this is very popular now, but please watch your hearts. This is the lie that there are successful people who are never tired, who are always successful, who are always beautiful, who always have a perfect makeup and perfect hairdress. And they travel the world, they devote themselves to the business, and they are successful mothers, successful wives, successful business women or businessmen. Dear friends, this is a lie. In our days, hedonism is very popular. The emotional and the physical hedonism, when people live for satisfying their desires and needs and chase the happy emotions. Dear friends, please don't live this life. Please don't peep over the hedge into the neighbor's backyard. Please be wise and remember that you have a different calling. You have a specific calling from the Lord. Don't compare yourselves to others. You don't really know what is in the neighbor's house, what is behind the closed doors.
продумайте каждый пункт, проанализируйте себя, спросите других людей и постарайтесь понять, как Бог сформировал для какой задачи, каких обстоятельств. Вы не ошибка.
Please try to find out, to analyze what strengths you have, what gifts you have, and remember that you are not a mistake. You are not worse than others. Yes, there are people who are better disciplined, who have a better memory, who have more abilities, who have more talents, but God is shaping you and He is using you in a way you were created for. If everybody peeped over the fence to their neighbors, it would be a disaster for Christianity. Yes, we are tempted to do so, especially when we talk to others, especially when we can see the pictures of others, but when I talk to self-confident people, I oftentimes see that their confidence has no basement, has no foundation. This is what happens in John the Baptist's life. There is a calling from God. He receives it, he knows it, he lives according to it, and this protects his heart. And it protects his joy. I fade away, but I am faithful in the ministry God has entrusted to me. This is the success of my cousin, and this is my success. This is the ministry of my friend, and this is my ministry. And it relates not only to the ministry, but to many, many other spheres of our lives. So 3 secrets we were talking about. Let them help you grow in joy. We will continue next time. And we will see 2 more secrets. And we will see how valuable God is. Here we can see that John the Baptist is looking at the Lord, and the Lord is the source of his joy. That's why John goes through all the troubles and pains of his life with peace and joy. And the last thing I would like to say before we pray and worship the Lord in the song is, for me, a great blessing, a difficult blessing, but a very important blessing is the disappointments in my life, the disappointments in the ministry, the disappointments in my own abilities. I've had a lot. I've had a great deal of disappointments this year, and I discussed them with Pastor Alexander. Sometimes it seems to me that I have more dead ends. He has more answers. Now I think I'm experiencing the brokenness and the inability, not even to serve, but the inability to plan something, even to make plans. And this was caused by the failures in the ministry. Another big disappointment that I experienced with my wife was dead ends. I didn't in the relationship, I didn't know how to build a relationship, and gradually God led me out of it. But the ministry is a different thing. A lot of things hit me hard. But I remind myself that we are still the sinners, we are still the needy ones. If I rely on myself, I will not do it. And I'm happy that I'm not 60, that I realized that sooner than at the end of my life. These disappointments are painful. They hit me hard, but they are a blessing. They are a blessing that teaches me to look for joy. Not in the usual things, but these difficulties help me break out of the horizontal vision of my life and to look vertically up at the Lord. And there wasn't a single problem that appeared in my life that wasn't caused by God, that wasn't blessed by God, that wasn't controlled by the Lord. I pray that we will be able to stop and cease struggling for a normal life, for the standards of others, for our own standards. I pray that we would be able to stop from time to time and see what God is doing, that we are not a mistake. Our lives are not a mistake. He is just doing some things in our lives, and they are unique for us. They are a unique providence. If we accept it, we will have this joy. We will be in the epicenter of His joy and His providence, and this will give us joy. Let's pray. Dear Lord, it was good for us to look at our lives, to break out of this horizontal understanding of our lives and look at the vertical, look at you above us. John the Baptist is such a great example of joy in you. Anna, the mother of Samuel, the mother of a prophet, a wonderful example, a supernatural example of such joy, a miraculous offering from her, the incredible pain of her heart, and yet the indescribable joy. Dear God, we can have peace in your hands. We can see that you are above. You have control over everything. We can be loving and merciful to our brothers and sisters, to the unsaved people. We can have rest in you. We can have happiness, joy in you. It's good for us. And it all comes from you. It all comes from our unity with you. If somebody's eyes were not open when we were reading this passage, if somebody couldn't see this invisible part of their lives, dear God, please open their hearts, open their eyes, and help them see your love, your care, your providence. Dear God, please have mercy on us. Please give us joy, the true joy, your joy. Dear God, we pray that we would be the conductors of these secrets of love, life, and joy to our children. Please bless us to be able to teach them, to show them, to receive your mercy and pass it on to our children. Dear God, please bless them. Please bless us. We love you. We worship you.